What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into Witty Sports Talk for another video today. This time, the first Formula One video on this channel. It's summer break for the next 2-3 weeks in the season, halfway through the season now. And so I just thought I'd give my first impressions on the season and however many people care about F1 that want to watch these videos, just to hear a random perspective of mine on how the season's gone from each individual team, as well as a couple of drivers mentioned here and there, obviously. But, you know, with the British Grand Prix wrapping up, Silverstone, extremely exciting. Lewis Hamilton taking him his first win in over 900 days, almost 1,000 days since his last win, and first win in 2 seasons. You know, summer break coming at a great time within the season. Plenty of winners this year, and we can all get into it right now. I will take the first look just at the Constructors and Drivers' Championships. As you can see, this is just straight off the F1 website. Red Bull at the top, no surprise there, 373 points, all the way down to Kick Sauber F1 with a swamping 0 points. One of the worst half seasons I've ever seen, and that's coming from a Haas fan, where we also scored 0 points. Haas did in a couple years back. But Kick Sauber, just from the pit stops to the car performance to just how the team is functioning, more off the grid in a sense, where it's not really the driver's fault, you know, like Bottas and Zhou Guanyu, like it's, you know, they're doing their best, but the car is just terrible. But yeah, they have 0 points. And then you got Ferrari, McLaren, and Mercedes wrapping out the top 4 there. Aston Martin within a lonely 5th place. And then, of course, RB Cash App, Haas, Alpine, and Williams, along with Kick Sauber, the bottom 5 teams. As for the Drivers' Championship, Max kind of had been running away with it first half of the season, especially the first couple of races, 255 points. Lando and McLaren definitely making a comeback, or at least trying to, near the end of that first half on 171. Leclerc and Sainz, do Ferrari guys, in 3rd and 4th. And then, you know, you have Piastri, Perez, Russell, and Hamilton, you know, rounding out those top drivers that are really competing for those points and bringing in the constructors' points and, you know, the points for themselves as drivers, trying to compete for the Drivers' Championship. But we'll see if Lando, he's the only real competitor that Max has, if he and McLaren can step up their game even more. They have made some great upgrades, which we'll get into later, to try and bring the fight to Red Bull. And Lando just needs to take the extra step as a driver now, I think, to really give it a fight. Will it be a fight near the end? Probably not. I think Max has already extended that lead a little bit too far, and it's not like he's going to finish out to the points that often. And Lando would basically just have to win, you know, almost every other race to, you know, bring it down to a close fight at the end of the season. Not really sure that's going to happen. But either way, it should be an exciting last half of the season. We've already had 5 or 6 winners this year, which is great for the sport. And so these guys up at the top maybe can exchange a few wins here and there as we move on to the second half of the season. Going team by team now, starting with Red Bull. As mentioned there, Max dominance, 255 points and in first place. But there has been some Perez struggles as of late. He's currently in 6th with 124 points. When he started the season fine. He started with, I think, back-to-back second-place finishes. First couple races, he was on the podium, finishing the top 5. But lately, it has not been good for Sergio, especially after signing a new contract, which was a little interesting halfway through the season here, and one in which many people thought he might get replaced. He hadn't performed the last couple of races, and now the past 2-3 races really have not been good for Sergio Perez at all. He hasn't finished in 3 of the last 5, and especially he has these contract, or these whatever stipulations in his contract, clauses in his contract is what I was looking for, where he can't be below like 100 points less than Max, and he can't be 5 places lower than Max in the Drivers' Championship or something like that. And he's extremely close on both of those, obviously being 5 places below him now. And if I look back at the points right here, he's already over 100 points below him. So it's interesting to see those clauses in the contract, and we'll see how that kind of plays out, especially, you know, with some of the likes of the other drivers doing really well and some young drivers, which wouldn't get the chance to go to Red Bull right away. But Yuki, who just signed a new contract at RB, he's been performing really well. Obviously, Ricciardo's lingering, even though he hasn't been great. Sainz is open still. So it'll be interesting to see how Perez and that seat, really unfolds this next half of the season after not the best opening half. Also with Red Bull, I'm not exactly sure if they aren't focusing too much on the car anymore, or, with Adrian Newey leaving, what the deal is, but McLaren have definitely caught up, and that's, partly with McLaren making upgrades and, producing maybe the fastest car as of now, and you have Lando and Piastri both driving at a really high level, and so it's kind of just on Max now to get the most out of the car, which he does almost every single time. But, Red Bull definitely have slacked off in a sense. The car isn't as dominant as it was at the start of the season, and McLaren now have definitely caught up, so that'll be an interesting battle between them and McLaren, moving forward this second half of the season. Moving to the team in between Red Bull and McLaren in the constructors right now is Ferrari, still second. McLaren definitely closing fast. The upgrades that they tried to bring last couple weeks haven't worked. Leclerc and Sainz, I think Sainz went also, but I know Leclerc went back to the original spec of the car for the British Grand Prix, which didn't work. As we know, he had a terrible weekend, partially his driving and qualifying, partially probably the car, and also, like always, strategy with Ferrari. They put him on inters way too early at Silverstone, and that just kind of ruined his race. Just was not damp, wet enough out on the track for inters at the time. He went 3 or 4 laps too early, and that just killed his race off. But either way, Leclerc having a tough season. I don't know what happened after Monaco. He finally won Monaco, and then it's just kind of all gone down to dumps after that. So this break is definitely one which him and Ferrari will definitely welcome. Get situated back there in an extreme fight with McLaren now for second place in the constructors. Just the vibe in the team seems a little off. Leclerc after the British Grand Prix looked just distraught in his post-race interview that they always do, and he just, it's been like it's too many times, like strategy is just terrible, and we saw it last year, Ferrari strategy awful, and there's just too many times where Leclerc should be doing better in races, and it's either, a slight mistake on him or just the strategy is just so bad that he just can't make up for it. Sainz is performing well. He's definitely been, he's below on points by 4, but I think on average, he's been the better driver this year. He won in Australia. He's picked up more podiums, and minus 1 or 2 incidents where he finished just outside the points or did not finish at all. I think just his overall performance has been a little bit better, but obviously the points is what matters, and Leclerc has more points, so fair enough to him for at least when he does have a good race. It's usually second or third, so he gets a ton of points. But yeah, Sainz still without a contract with another team. It's kind of up to him. Obviously, he'll have a seat somewhere next year. But, he's looking at Alpine, looking at Sauber for Audi in the future, and then at Williams also. Those are kind of the 3 teams it seems like that he's coming down to. So we'll see what happens there. If I was him, I think I would just go to Sauber and then just be with the team, just with Nico Hülkenberg, and them two can bond and get the feel of the factory, and maybe if there's any Audi execs that he could talk to already, anyway, I would do that instead of just going to a team for 1 year and then switching teams again. Might as well just go to the main team, even though it's not the same team. It's not Audi, but it's still Sauber, and I think he could get familiarized better in that sense. But that's up to him. Maybe he thinks he can compete for more points at Williams or Alpine or something. So we'll see what happens there with Sainz. But just overall for Ferrari, the break definitely needed, and we'll see how they can bounce back after a tough couple of races, not really living up to the hypes and the hopes they would have wanted down the stretch here before summer break. Now on to McLaren, the real neutral team of the season so far, I would say. I don't think anybody really hates McLaren. They have 2 fun drivers, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. They just drive well. I think the team camaraderie is there. I feel like they all get along really well. And then now, after these Miami upgrades, they look like they have the fastest car on track. Lando picking up his first win of the season in Miami. Piastri on the podium quite a few times, getting close to that first victory. Both of them after the British Grand Prix, saying we should have won that. And Oscar finished, what did he finish, 4th, 5th? And he's saying I could have won, but just the pit stop strategy with the inters kind of messed him up there. Lando definitely should have gone on mediums instead of softs at the end of that, near the end of that race. I think he would have caught Hamilton and then not been caught by Verstappen. So that's one which Lando acknowledged himself. He said, look, I need to make better decisions in that moment, him and his team. So I think they have it all figured out, and they have it all up to them really. For Lando to win more races, for Piastri to get his first win. And I think for sure, once again, at Silverstone in the past couple races, they've been the highest scoring constructor. So I don't think it's, really out of reach from the past Ferrari to get second. And I think if Perez keeps struggling, they could easily finish first. They could win the Constructors' Championship, really. If they keep finishing second, third, fourth every single race, and maybe, get 1 or 2 more wins with Lando, with how, fluid in a sense this year has been with multiple race winners. Sainz could win another one. Leclerc, we'll see if he bounces back, could win another one. Hamilton and Russell at Mercedes now, which we'll get into in a second. Their car has really started to perform into this break. And so, there could be a couple times where Verstappen isn't winning, and maybe he's finishing not second place, and maybe he's finishing 4th or 5th, but it's kind of up to McLaren. They have the best car now, I think. And so if they can really push the limit and make the right, strategies, I think Lando and Piastri could be on for some race wins, which would really propel them up the Constructors' Championship. So I think McLaren could maybe win the Constructors. That's more far-fetched, but definitely second place. And, they definitely have everything rolling for McLaren right now. On to Mercedes, back-to-back wins in Austria and then in Britain, for Russell and then for Lewis. It wasn't the best start on the season. It took until Canada to get on the podium when they finished 3rd and 4th there. Russell was on the podium. Lewis Hamilton finished 4th. But the car has been way better now as of late. They got on the podium quite a few times now. And obviously back-to-back wins, Lewis winning for the first time in forever. That's huge for confidence. So at least it's nice to see that maybe they're not doing Lewis in, like some teams do when their drivers leave. Obviously Hamilton going to Ferrari next year. Sometimes the teams kind of sabotage, in a sense, the drivers leaving. But, at least this year it seems like the teams have done pretty well with making it even. Not only Mercedes, but, Haas with Nico Hülkenberg, Alpine, and Ocon, the car seems to be running normal. I mean, it's Alpine, so it's not a great car, but it's not like it's that much worse than Gasly's or anything. So, for Hamilton, happy that he's, get that win, last win for Mercedes at his home race and everything. And so I think he's still striving, to win more races. Mercedes still striving to win more races. I think they might be able to. Their car, like I said, coming on strong. Red Bull's car, I don't know if it's declining or just McLaren and Mercedes are catching up. Ferrari, one of its drivers is always in and out. And so I think, as the season progresses, they have a good chance to move up the constructors as well and at least, compete at a high level. That top 6, those front 3 rows are always up for competition. And Mercedes, lately is doing well. So I think they'll be happy with their progression. And, they'll be looking forward to a strong second half of the F1 calendar. All right, now we're going to move on to the bottom half of the teams. Aston Martin, RB Cash App, and Haas running in 5th, 6th, and 7th. Aston Martin just a little bit off the pace this year. After last year, Alonso, he had finished on the podium a couple of times, 2nd, 3rd place. As the year went on, it wasn't as great, but, he re-signed his contract, Fernando did, and he was happy with Aston Martin. Last year, like I said, he did really well. The car looked really strong. Him and Stroll both scoring points consistently. They're not going to challenge Red Bull or Ferrari or Mercedes. It's not going to be, up there yet, but you would expect maybe more progress from last year. And I feel like the car just took a step back. I don't know what it was exactly. Fernando and Stroll just really haven't been at the paces. Not only the car, but their personal driving as well. I just don't think it's been that great. I said, Fernando just re-signed a couple weeks ago. Stroll just a couple days ago before Silverstone got his new contract. So they're both locked up. Stroll's, dad obviously runs the team and owns the team, so it's not really a surprise. But he hasn't been doing great. Alonso hasn't been doing great. And so I don't really know what is up with Aston Martin. Their best result all year has been 6th place. Alonso got it once. Stroll got it once. But just for them as a whole, not the best year. Moving on to RB Cash App, Yuki Tsunoda. What a driver this year he has been. I mean, I thought he might get his chance at Red Bull with Perez doing so poorly, which might sound crazy. But, people on Twitter, on Instagram, they've been like, why is Ricciardo being linked for the seat if Yuki's beating him out in almost every single race? I mean, I think maybe outside of Austria, and I'm trying to think if Ricciardo beat Yuki in Austria. I think he did. There's been, 1 or 2 races there where Daniel's done well, but Yuki has been on a flyer this year. He has most of their points, and the car just seems to run really well, especially on certain tracks. I know it's like a lot of corners, fast or slow corners. I think the car just does really well on those sort of tracks, and so they've been able to pick up a lot of points. I think they're doing better than maybe what some people would have thought, although they're always usually better than the bottom three teams, but just Yuki and Ricciardo, driving as well as I think they can, and that car looks pretty solid. And it's going to be between them and Haas for that 6th place spot, 7th place spot. And Haas, like I just mentioned, they've come up. Nico Hülkenberg back-to-back P6 finishes, double points in Austria. They're only 4 points back of RB now. And honestly, as I said, as a Haas fan, this year has been amazing, and it could have been even better because Hülkenberg and or Magnussen have finished like 11th or 12th so many times that, only being 4 points back, and it's usually, Yuki or Ricciardo in that 10th spot or 9th spot. Swap that around, Haas could be in front of, RB. So it's the fine margins there, 10th, 11th, 12th, those 3-4 spots there, which RB and Haas have kind of been competing for, could be the difference coming down the stretch here. But, as for a Haas fan, great improvement. We're not 18th, 19th, 20th, getting knocked out in Q1 every single time. Hülkenberg obviously leaving to go to Sauber next year. It's going to be a huge loss. It's linked that we're going to sign Ocon along with Ollie Behrman, who's already signed, kind of to replace Nico. Don't really know if Magnussen should lose his seat. He's not the best driver, but he's not bad. He's a great team player. We saw him pick up 45 penalties one race when Hülkenberg was finishing in 8th or whatever it was, whichever race that was. So, Magnussen's a great team player, and I think he's a decent driver. So it's going to be tough if he, is without a seat next year. I think that's a little bit unfair for him. Maybe Sauber or whoever else can pick him up, or Alpine, maybe someone, wherever Sainz doesn't go, I guess, maybe Magnussen could get in. But, with Liam Lawson and Felipe Dragovic and some of the other F2 guys that have already won F2 or graduated from F2 and whatnot, that might be kind of tough for him. He might be out of a seat. But either way, Haas doing way better than expectations, battling with RB, and then Aston Martin kind of making up the best, or I guess the worst of the best, and the best of the worst. So that kind of just an odd spot for them. Now to the bottom 3 teams, Alpine, Williams, and Stake, F1, 8th, 9th, and 10th. Alpine started terrible. I mean, it was one of the slowest cars I've ever seen on an F1 track. But, they've slowly gained momentum. They've scored double points once now. Ocon and or Gasly will finish, 10th or 9th every once in a while now. They got 9 points out of nowhere in the last couple of races, ahead of Williams and then, of course, ahead of Kick Sauber. So, they're not the worst anymore, and after a terrible start, they've somehow got the car, after an upgrade or two, to look pretty well. So, they're not just like a bottom feeder team anymore. They got to Q2 quite a few times now, and I think Gasly and or Ocon at least have made Q3 once. So, they're a competitive team now for the bottom half, and we'll see how that goes on. Obviously, Ocon leaving, Gasly and Ocon are the least of friends, we'll call it that. They're definitely not buddies. They don't really like each other. So, that was bound to never work. So Ocon's out. But, we'll see how Alpine continues to move forward the rest of the season. On to Williams. I feel like they have more points than they do. They only have 4, and Albon has provided all 4. He drives it well almost every race. Like, obviously, sometimes the car is just not good. But I swear he manages to get to Q2, Q3 more than he should. He's always starting near the top of the grid in a sense, where he's 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, which obviously isn't, the top, but it's nowhere near the bottom. And so I'm surprised they only have 4 points. I feel like Albon would have scored a couple more. They got 2 points, I think it was, at Silverstone, which brought them to 4. But, overall, with Williams, the car looked really bad a couple races ago, and they were both finished 19th, 20th, and so they couldn't really do much about that. But somewhere I guess for the home race in a sense, they kind of are based there. They turned it around. Even Logan Sargent had a really good race, qualified P12, finished P11, and we'll see. He finally got the full upgrades, finally got the full car. He's equal just about, I think, with Albon now as far as the specs and everything in the car. So hopefully for the American, he can pull it out because he is hanging on by a thread to his seat. Probably going to get replaced anyway by the end of the year with one of the younger guys and or with Sainz. So we'll see how that goes. But he really needs to score some points if he wants to keep his seat in Formula One, which I hope he does because it's nice to have an American in there, but he just hasn't performed well, so I understand if his seat gets dropped. On to Kick Sauber, Stake F1. I mean, maybe I think they're still an F1 team. Maybe he should be an F2. Terrible, all around, just garbage, all around, just what are you doing on the grid? I mean, I feel bad for Bottas and Joe because they can't even do anything. I mean, we know Bottas is not a bad driver, okay? And Joe is not that bad either, really. He's not great, but he's not terrible. And there's just nothing they can do. The car stinks. It's so slow. I think they got to Q2 twice this whole season. The pit stops cost them 25 seconds. It's just not a good look, and I feel bad for them. I don't really have anything else to say besides I'm glad it's not Haas anymore. But I just feel bad for anyone that's a fan of them, and maybe they can try and score a point or two. Hopefully for the sake of it, they score a point. I don't know when or how they're going to do that, how they're going to get to 10th place, just because the car is so bad. But, we'll see. We'll see if anything can happen with them. But that's all for now. That's the mid-season F1 review. It's summer break. Next 2-3 weeks without F1, it's going to be a little tough on the Saturday and Sunday mornings for me on the East Coast, Central Eastern time zone here. So, I don't really know what I'm going to do with my mornings, but, we'll wait and pick it back up in 3 weeks, see if McLaren can close the gap on Ferrari and Red Bull, see if Lando can pick up some more wins, see the battle between RB and Haas, see if Williams and Sargent can get any points, Albon going to keep driving well, see the improvements by Alpine maybe, and we'll see if Aston Martin can end up doing anything, besides just being mid. Can Alonso, can Stroll extract something out of the car? Can Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, and Mercedes pick up some more wins? And will Ferrari eventually, resurrect the Ferrari name? Can they get it going in the second half of the year? I don't know. We'll see about that. Until then, wait on for the next race, and have a good one.